Wynne Dunwell, Professor of Horticulture for Nursery Crops at the University of Kentucky Department of Horticulture. Today we're going to talk about taking care of your pruners, but I would like to express my thanks to the Kentucky Integrated Pest Management Program, sponsored by a grant from the USDA NIFA, and thank them for their support. So we want to look at cleaning our pruners, and I'm going to move a little closer to the camera so that we can see that these don't open. Well, they do eventually, but they're sticky and they need to be cleaned. So we're going to do that, and the way we're going to do that is I'm going to take my little pocket knife that I carry, and whatever that knife might be doesn't really matter, and scrape the goo off the blade with the knife. Do both sides. This is a little technique that we learned many years ago, not many, years ago, from a class we had on how to prune trees in the nursery that was hosted by Amy Fulcher, who was then the Extension Associate for Nursery Crops at the University of Kentucky, and Brent Warren, who was at that time owned Warren and Sons Nursery. And that's the first thing they do, is scrape that goo off and feel it with your hand to make sure you get it off. I think there's a little bit left on the tip there. We want to get it totally clean so that we don't have to use the back of our fingers to open the pruners. So then it's clean now, it's not sticky, it's opening. You don't have to stick your fingers behind to get it open. You should never have to do that. If you do, stop and clean your pruners. Okay, the next thing to do after we've cleaned them is to put a drop of oil on the hinge. Now, I like to use a little package of oil that is actually Singer oil in here, Singer sewing machine. Just put a drop on the hinge and then work it back and forth. Now, I always keep the spring clean and wipe it and don't leave grease on it. Maybe even take it out and clean it and make sure it's good and clean so it does its job and doesn't get gummed up and prevent them from opening and closing easily. Now, there is a product sold by Felco. I'm sorry I've carried this around in my bag so much that there's no outside on it. It's Felco 980, a lubricant and cleaner, and it can actually help you with that, cleaning the goo off, and also lubricate the hinge and the spring, and then just wipe them off with a rag to get that oil off. But they should, remember, open and close readily. Now we have to sharpen them, and what I do, and if I'm in the field pruning for the day, I just take a piece of, yes, I dropped it on the concrete and broke my little stone, piece of stone to the field in my pocket, and I just take and sharpen this edge right here to the angle that it was at when I bought the pruners, and just continue that and make sure it's ultra sharp. I mean, as close to razor sharp as you can get it, like that. And then I also clean and sharpen this little piece here. Just kind of flatten it and make sure there's no burrs. I didn't hit a piece of wire in the training system or something like that, and just get that nice and clean, any kind of burrs off. And then I'm pretty good shape. Now, there are other types of pruning devices. This is a little Corona sharpening tool that's available, and many of you probably may have used a diamond tipped like a steel for your pruners. So there's many different ways of using them. I just use that little piece of stone. Then finally, the last thing we want to do in our process is to disinfect them. You'll hear a lot of different theories on disinfection. I would strongly recommend that you go to any of the orchard recommendations on how to disinfect your pruners for fire blight, because we often do prune for fire blight, even in ornamental nurseries, where we will prune make a cut and then spray, make a cut then spray, and we'll change our pruners constantly. And there they mention about having a spare set of pruners, that you would go ahead and have one set of pruners soaking in a disinfectant in a bucket or a small container of some sort, and use the other pair. Well, if you're going to prune and moisten between cuts, that's kind of hard to do. So I just use a small spray bottle, like I use on all my tools, of 70% alcohol, and just mist over the pruners. And I've done this for many, many years on many different sets of pruners, all different kinds and sizes, and it's worked out well, and I haven't had any real corrosion problems or anything else. Other materials that we can use on disinfecting our pruners, a lot of people talk about using Lysol. It would be a second choice, and then we get into different materials such as Zyrtol and different products. Some mention about using Clorox. It's an outstanding disinfectant, but the problem is it's pretty corrosive on pruners, and leaving them soak for a prolonged period of time in that mixture would be a bit difficult. When you do leave them soak, they do recommend that you make a 50% mixture of 70% alcohol and water. So 50% of your mixture would be alcohol, 70% isopropyl alcohol, and the other 50% would be water that you mix and put into a tank. Then every 10th time you clean a pair of pruners, by soaking them in that solution, that you remove them, dump out the container, and make fresh. I like just spraying them frequently during the course of a day when I'm pruning. So that pretty much takes care of that. I would like to mention a few things. This tape is shot, but we use a hook, and this little strap is actually made for surveyors to carry their can of marking spray. And we have found that it's quite excellent. Not we, I actually stole this idea at the Brent Warren training, that most of his employees used this tape, and they could spin the tape off from their waist belt, from having it hooked on their belt. So I just wanted you to know, because when I saw this, I said, ooh, I have to have one of those, and I couldn't find it. And it's by Weaver Company. It's available online, and it's a holder for a marking can. So they have that. Also, if you have Felcos or any other type of pruner, they have these little tools that come with them. I put them on a little Velcro tie along with a few extra hose washers that I always seem to need when I don't have them available, and put them on a strap on my bag to help me out whenever I'm out pruning, in case I should happen to need them. I almost never do, because I do, at the end of the day, I take care of all of my pruners in my office, get them all sharpened and cleaned and put away, and if there's any kind of adjustments that are needed, I'll use a screwdriver and a small wrench. So, thank you.